From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A new tomato variety gets a stamp of approval, how it got that purple pigment, and why some say it packs a healthy punch. 2 months worth of rain over just a few days.
We can't get anywhere. Everything is shut down, basically.
See the impact on the Green Mountain State. Market watchers don't like what they see in the latest supply-demand report.
Big picture, pretty bearish compared to pre-report estimates.
As we shuffle the balance sheet again for the major grains right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the testing grounds meet the proving grounds. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. Dry weather is forcing USDA to make major revisions when it comes to projected yields for the corn crop. The agency releasing new numbers in its monthly supply-demand report. Diving into the numbers now, USDA now calling for 177.5 bushels an acre for corn. That's a 4-bushel drop from last month after a dry June in many key growing areas. But it says predictions of rain and cooler than normal temperatures for some of the driest parts of the Corn Belt this month could change things. Production now forecast to be 15.3 billion bushels, up 55 million bushels from last month on greater planted and harvested acres. As for soybeans, the agency staying the course at 52 bushels to the acre. Production is projected at 4.3 billion bushels, down 210 million on lower harvested area. Wheat yields are now forecast to be 46.1 bushels to the acre, up more than a bushel over last month. Production also moving higher to 1.7 billion bushels, up 74 million bushels from last month on higher winter wheat production. Now let's see what all that means when it comes to ending stocks. Corn beginning stocks are lowered 50 million bushels due to greater feed and residual use, offsetting reductions in corn use for ethanol and exports. So old crop comes in at 1.4 billion, new crop 2.26. Old crop soybeans at 255 million bushels. New crop beans are down 50 million from last month to 300 million bushels. As for wheat, 580 million bushels for old crop and 592 million for new. Corn, soybeans, and wheat all sinking after the report came out. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us. And Michelle, the trade was looking for lower numbers, especially when it came to that corn yield.
Clint, the trade was expecting a bigger cut, but USDA lowering corn yield this early in the season by 4 bushels per acre was actually a victory. Now, regardless, the ending stocks figure is still bearish, coming in well above last year. And maybe the biggest disappointment for the bulls was USDA's ending stocks figure for soybeans. USDA worked in the 4 million acre drop for soybeans from the June 30th acreage report, but left yield unchanged and lower demand, which resulted in a 300 million bushel ending stocks number that was 100 million bushels above expectations and a blow to the market and prices.
Big picture, pretty bearish compared to pre-report estimates. They went ahead and they cut the export demand by 125 million bushels. Makes sense based on the pace that we're running right now. We are running about 10 million tons on our new crop export book below where we were last year. So it makes sense for them to come in here and adjust that lower. They did reduce crush a little bit by 10 million bushels.
USDA did drop corn yield 4 bushels per acre. That was only a bushel above expectations, but yields could be cut moving forward due to drought. So ending stocks ended only 5 million bushels above last month, even after working in the extra 2 million acres from the report.
Those acres transfer over to the balance sheet. Yield comes down a little bit. They actually increased demand a little bit. They reduced export and they reduced corn for ethanol, but they raised the feed residual, and that's kind of a head scratcher. It must be more on the residual side of things, which I tend to think means they overestimated last year's crop.
The increase in wheat production by 74 million bushels was mostly due to higher winter wheat. So ending stocks were raised 30 million, but are still the lowest in nearly 16 years. And Split says spring wheat production at 482 million bushels could drop due to dryness in the northern plains, further tightening that balance sheet. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
Ahead of the report being released, we also got some better news about inflation. The latest consumer price index, now at its lowest point since early 2021, rising 0.2% last month, now up 3% in June compared with a year earlier. It's thanks in part to lower prices for gas, airfare, used cars, and groceries. However, the number is still above the Federal Reserve's 2% target rate. Now, it's believed the Fed will boost its benchmark rate again when it meets in 2 weeks. But with price increases slowing or even falling outright, many economists believe the Fed might hold off on another rate hike in September. Another big story we've been following: severe weather is continuing to take its toll on the Northeast, especially Vermont, with intense downpours flooding roadways and forcing some people to evacuate. Vermont Secretary of Ag saying because of all the damage to roads in the state, trucks are having a hard time getting to farms to pick up milk, and floodwaters have inundated fields. As John Lawrence reports, thousands of homes and businesses have already been destroyed.
Vermont remains under a state of emergency, and the downtown of its capital, Montpelier, was closed by local officials after more than 5 inches of record-setting rain fell there on Monday. A boil water notice was also placed on the city for safety concerns. Vermont Governor Phil Scott posted this image on social media Tuesday, saying he had to take a snowmobile trail to get to an open road because the streets around his house were impassable. He calls this storm system historic and catastrophic.
Floodwaters continue to rise in some places, like our capital city, and have surpassed levels seen during Tropical Storm Irene.
Vermont is among the states experiencing what weather forecasters call 1-in-1,000-year rain events, which, as its name suggests, have a 0.1% chance of happening in a calendar year.
We can't get anywhere. Everything is shut down, basically. You can't go south, you can't go west, you can't go east. Wherever you're at, that's where you are.
It's pretty bad. Like the doors to houses look like small windows.
In addition to the Northeast, parts of Oklahoma are also dealing with flood warnings. Authorities there say at least 2 flood-related deaths were confirmed Monday. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
From one weather extreme to another, more than 70 million people are under heat alerts across parts of the U.S. From the central U.S. to the southwest, temperatures were expected in the triple digits. Now, Phoenix has now experienced 12 consecutive days over 110 degrees. Another 7, and that breaks the all-time record. People in the city are being urged to stay inside. The city has opened hundreds of cooling centers and water stations for local people. And it looks like that heat will be sticking around for another day in the southwest, adding to the total. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with more.
Yeah, adding to the total regarding the above average highs or the record-setting heat across the United States. Now, one thing that we've been talking about is that pocket, that pool of cooler air back up here to the north that continues to send down not only some energy, but some rain as well from the northeast, northwest down to east. That's why temperatures are a little bit cooler back up into Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, but we're right on the tracks between below average temperatures and above average temperatures regarding our highs. And that's what you're looking at for this afternoon. A triple digit heat possibly in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, as we go through the next couple of days, the pattern will try to shift, but unfortunately we're kind of back into a situation where flooding is possible up into the northeast. Remember, Vermont, Maine, and also New Hampshire saw a substantial amount of rainfall earlier in the week, and that will continue to be the case as we get into our Thursday and then possibly into Friday as well. Go ahead and take a look at your screen here, and not what you want to see when you go out to check on a field. A lot of damage. And Nate was checking out a cornfield in York County, Nebraska, that was hit by a storm. He said the corn would have tasseled this week. He says the positives are that he has one pivot that remained standing, and the grain bins withstood the storm. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
There is growing concern Black Sea grain deal won't be extended. It's due to run out later this month. The United Nations and Turkey brokered the agreement between Russia and Ukraine last year in an effort to ease a global food crisis. There was a separate agreement with Russia to move the country's shipments of food and fertilizer, but Russian officials contend there are no grounds for extending it, something the country has threatened before, then twice gone on to extend the deal for 2 months. But officials say the amount of grain leaving Ukraine already has dropped, with Russia accused of slowing joint inspections of ships by Russian, Ukrainian, UN, and Turkish officials, and refusing to allow more vessels to join the initiative. The UN says it is negotiating with Russia and, quote, doing whatever we can to ensure the continuation of all the agreements. Happening right now, several dairy industry workers are walking the picket lines over what they claim are unfair labor practices. The strike happening at New Dairy Select Milk in Wisconsin is a subsidiary of Borden Dairy. The union says it's pushing for workers to join a Teamsters health care plan, while it claims Borden Dairy is demanding workers receive the company's health care coverage. Now, the company says it has offered a new competitive contract that significantly increases above market pay and benefits. Workers at the plant help produce sour cream for several well-known brands, including Taco Bell, Wendy's, and HelloFresh. Grain markets fall double digits after this latest USDA report. We'll dig into what's next coming up after the break. And later, beef has some serious competition. We'll tell you which protein is winning the consumption race. That's ahead on Ag Day.
Ag Day is brought to you by EndZone from Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your EndZone fan control now for as low as $2,900 while supplies last.
Hey, remember when egg prices were hitting record highs at the height of last year's bird flu outbreak? Well, they have since sunk back down after supplies recovered. Take a look at this chart from the Economic Research Service. You can see wholesale prices at the end of last month were averaging $1.23 per dozen. Now, that's about 77% lower than the highest average weekly price last year. Experts say during the summer months, demand for eggs tend to level off as people bake less often. At the height of the disease in the last weeks of December, weekly egg inventories were 29% lower than at the start of the year, and prices reached a record high of $5.37 per dozen. Now, it's reported the avian flu added up to a loss of more than 43 million egg-laying hens. Grain markets fell double digits after the latest USDA report. Michelle Rook has further analysis with Chip Nellinger in Markets Now.
A lower day in the grains on Wednesday after the report. Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing, is joining us. And soybeans probably the biggest shock in terms of bearishness in the report, 100 million bushels above trade estimates. I think the question now, Chip, is are the highs in soybeans?
Yeah, I think Mother Nature is going to have the final say-so there. We're only about 4 or 5 innings into this game. So, beans have a long way to go. They need continued cool weather and rainfall through the rest of July and most of August. They're still very much uncertain whether we have this high bar that the USDA has set now at 52 bushels. Even though the carryout's 300 million, if you start working that yield backwards, it really cuts into the carryout quickly. For the time being, we may have topped the market. I think it's important to see whether we can hold this week above last week's highs. I think that's 13.15.5. If you can and rally into the end of the week or the first part of next week, the market may have, more to say or more assumption that maybe that 52 bushel yield isn't realistic, but certainly going to be continue to be very, very choppy and very volatile, as today's wide range is an example of.
Yeah. So if soybeans have topped, which have been kind of holding the corn market up, and we're still at the same ending stocks number we were a month ago, how low does corn go from here?
Yeah, that's the question. I think the case of where corn goes from here is 100% on where beans go. If beans haven't topped and we need to spend some time north of $14, it's going to drag corn along with it, kicking and screaming. If beans have topped and they're going to put a $1.50 break in, then that, in my mind, means that corn's going to go that much lower. The bear argument in corn now is, okay, we've got the yield kind of dialed in. Say it's a bushel or two one way or the other, but demand is likely too high. And the USDA could easily drop another 200 to 400 million out of demand over the coming months, and that increases the carryout up to maybe 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 range. So if beans have topped and they're going to put a bigger break in, maybe we drag this corn to an ugly level, meaning the 430s, maybe the 420s. I think the case of corn as to whether the low and where the low comes in at is entirely dependent on whether we just top beans or not. And I think it's going to take a week or 10 days, maybe longer, to figure that out.
All right. Thanks for joining us in your analysis. As always, Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing. That's Markets Now, and we'll have more Ag Day coming up.
Farming has changed. Markets are riskier than ever. For customized, focused commodity marketing, contact Chip Nellinger or Adam Dreyer at 309-550-7213.
Yeah, we're going to push this graphic all the way into our weekend. So your Saturday and Sunday, by definition, that is the weekend. This is Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're seeing that jet stream again push a lot of energy and rain back down into the Midwest, but everything is going to wrap up once again, much like what we had earlier in the week. When I say wrap up, I'm talking the energy and the moisture back into the Northeast. So remember a little bit ago, we were looking at the flooding potential. It is back both Saturday and into Sunday. You see a big plume of moisture spreading out across the East Coast. As that energy spreads out, we're not looking at severe weather, pockets of heavy downpours or thunderstorms. Rather, it's more moderate to heavy rain spread out over a large distance. What we've been wanting all season long was for this pattern to develop more to the west, which would give us ample moisture across the plains, the Midwest, and certainly where we need some of that rain. Again, this pattern is mainly for the East Coast, with the rain continuing to move through both Saturday and Sunday. So that's why this map matches up with the East Coast on Saturday with a flooding potential between about 5 and 15% chance of some flooding. That will continue also into Sunday, but we start to introduce the 15 to 40. No surprise here, Gulf moisture, and these waters are toasty, a lot easier to evaporate waters that is warmer than colder. Think about boiling water that easily evaporates off the top more so than cold water. Well, that is the case, and that is where we're going to see the potential for some flooding. About a 40% chance of some flooding Gulf Coast states, but also a little back to the Northeast as well. Now that's coming up on Sunday. In that jet stream pattern going into next Thursday, this pocket of cool air starts to become a little bit more shallow, and that's going to build a ridge across most of the United States. Let's start off with New Jersey. Partly cloudy, high around 93 degrees, low around 75 degrees. New York, we got some PM ... PM thunderstorms, high around 80 degrees. We did New Jersey, we've done New York. What about New Mexico? Mostly sunny, high around 90 degrees.
Registration is open for the 2023 Pro Farmer Crop Tour, August 21st through the 24th. Attend one of our nightly meetings or join online as we gain insight on the 2023 growing season. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
Well, we told you yesterday that pork exports were strong for the month of May. The news isn't as good when it comes to beef. The U.S. Meat Export Federation reporting that beef exports totaled just over 116,000 metric tons in May. That's down 14% from last year at the same time, but up 4% from the previous month. Export value was more than $874 million, also down 19% year over year, but up 2% from April. Now it says exports in May strengthened to Mexico, Taiwan, and South Africa, and export value to Canada was the highest in nearly 8 years. What is the beef industry's biggest competition right now? Well, it's not plant-based meats. Bloomberg reports it's chicken. It says chicken passed beef for per-person consumption in the U.S. back in 1993 and says that gap is continuing to widen. It reports Americans are expected to eat about 100 pounds of chicken this year, while beef is about half that. It attributes the increase for chicken due to price differences and chicken's versatility for use in home cooking, processed foods, and restaurants. Now, the CEO of the Beef Board telling Bloomberg while Americans have shifted away from beef over the past 40 years, he says the industry is making positive progress in touting the health benefits of beef, and he expects younger buyers to eat more beef as they age because they won't care as much about cheaper prices for chicken. Tomato lovers could soon be seeing a new color. Why purple tomatoes could soon be popping up everywhere in the country. The iconic red tomato may be getting some competition soon. FDA green-lighting sales of a new purple-hued tomato variety. Norfolk Plant Sciences says it's officially completed a consultation with the FDA regarding its high antioxidant, genetically engineered purple tomato. Now, the FDA says they have no further questions at this time, and that's opened the door for the first limited sales to begin. The purple color comes from 2 genes sourced from the edible snapdragon flower, and they naturally stimulate the tomato's ability to produce purple pigments. Now, the company plans to sell a range of purple tomato products, including seeds for home gardeners. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on Farm.